Thank you very much to my colleagues Ansa and Idris, to my Uncle Rasib, who is also my election agent, and to so many of you who have worked with me on this issue over the last 15 years. It's very nice of you to say thank you for raising my voice, but all I did is speak with your voice. That was the promise that I made, and that was the promise on which I have delivered, and that is the promise on which I promise you tonight I will continue to deliver until I am dead and gone. 5 generations of my family lived and worked in this corner of Birmingham. My great-great-great-grandfather trained at Saltley College when it was open in the 1870s. But my dad's family came from another part of the British Empire, that cold, windswept island of Ireland. And so although I did not know much about the struggle of Kashmir before I was elected, I knew lots about British colonialism, because I grew up with the stories from my grandmother, my great aunt, about the Black and Tans and the conduct of the British Army in their homeland of Ireland. So I understand the mistakes of the past, and I understand the injustice of the past, and I understand why the Labour Party has to be a place where good people come together to atone for the errors of years and centuries gone by, but just as important, if not more important, to plough that path to justice for the years to come. What I want to start with tonight really is a word of thanks to you, because as a diaspora community, it would have been very easy to forget the past, to forget that place so many hundreds and thousands of miles away. But you never forgot where you come from. You never forget where you come from. Where you see injustice around the world, you are prepared to stand up and shout about it, safe in the knowledge that no injustice can last forever. And that is what you have done over the last few months, since we have seen this barbarous behaviour in Kashmir. You stood up and you demanded of people like me and of the representatives in the Labour Party in Parliament that they did something about it. And that is what we have tried to do, and that is what we will continue to do over the years to come. I just want to share with you 3 very quick points about why we are now at a turning point in this struggle. The first is that the stakes are obviously very high. People in Parliament, they often talk about the dangers of a historic conflict between 2 nuclear powers. This is rubbish. It's not a debate, it's not an argument, it's not a contest between 2 nuclear powers, it's a struggle between 3. China is building a jugular vein to the Persian Gulf through Pakistan at the moment. Do you seriously think that China will allow India to put a thumb on its jugular vein when so much is at stake for its future? This is far more dangerous than a struggle between 2 nuclear powers. This is the most dangerous place now on earth because of the conduct of the government in Delhi. But the stakes are higher for a human level too. I'm glad that you raised the issue of Islamophobia, because I have been just taken aback by the abuse that I have received, which in turn is nothing to the abuse that Muslims have received as they have sought to argue their point of view and their case when it comes to justice for Kashmir. What is going on here? Ask yourself, what is going on here? I'll tell you what is going on. We now have a systematic attempt, a conspiracy around the world to dehumanize those of the Muslim faith. It is Islamophobia in its most dangerous form, and I'll tell you how it ends. When you dehumanize others, when you try and say that these people over here, because of where they come from or what they believe or who they pray to, are less than others, where you end up is with the genocide that we now see perpetrated against the Rohingya. You end up with the scandal of children being thrown onto fires, of women being raped, of people ceaselessly murdered, and the barbarous conditions that we now see in Cox's Bazar. And we have to stand up against that Islamophobia now more than ever before. So, this is an important turning point in the contest. This is a contest where there is now so much more at stake. And we are now, I think, at a turning point in world affairs. Because around the world, what you can now see are populists coming to power. You've been bombarded with literature by me and the Labour Party team, and if you turn on the back, you will see a picture that was invented by people here in our constituency of Hodge Hill. It's a picture of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. And the reason we put that picture there is because time and time again, people in our community said to me, Boris Johnson, he's just like Donald Trump, isn't he? And friends, you are right. But I tell you who else we could have put in that picture, along with Nigel Farage. The other person we could have put in that picture is Mr. Modi.
Yes, I agree.
Because Mr. Modi, I tell you, Mr. Modi has now decided that he is going to take the Donald Trump approach to politics over the years to come. He is a dangerous populist who is corrupting the secular idea of the Constitution of India that was created all of those years ago. India was conceived by the Congress Party as a place where so many different ethnicities and faiths could live together. That is now in peril. That is now in jeopardy as the BJP and their ideologues in the RSS now seek to bend the course of India in a more dangerous place, now seek to bend the biggest democracy on earth towards a different place, now seek to bend the destiny of 1 billion people towards a different place. These are dangerous times if we allow India to succumb to the seductions of populist politics that dehumanizes others because of the people because of the God to which they pray. That is why this is so dangerous. And that is why in this conflict, I am not anti-India. I am pro-justice. You talked about a Kashmir-centric approach. I say our approach is a Kashmir-centric approach. It's a justice-centric approach. It's a human rights-centric approach. That is why ultimately we will win. But as we go through this struggle over the months and years to come, actually what we have to do is build relationships with those in the Congress Party and others who share our worldview that what Modi, the BJP and the RSS are up to is existentially dangerous for the security of South Asia. These are the Congress politicians that weren't even allowed out of the airport in order to go and see what was really going on. These were the people who wanted to join us in arguing against the lockdown, against the shutdown, to argue for the drawdown of troops from the streets of Kashmir. The final point that I wanted to make is that this is not a bilateral issue. Human rights is never a bilateral issue. When was human rights something to be traded and bargained away between two sovereign powers? That was never the case. Why is it suddenly the case now? Even if you believed that the similar agreement was somehow worth the paper it was still written on, that's not what Imran Khan says. Mr. Modi, he has bilaterally broken the similar agreement. Literally, there are guarantees in the similar agreement against doing what he did with the unilateral suspension of Article 370. He's broken the similar agreement. The only people who still think it's a bilateral issue are the government in Delhi and their friends Boris Johnson, who's currently in Downing Street. Who else thinks that it's going to be a bilateral issue? And who seriously thinks that any path to justice will be ploughed by continuing with this worldview? Think about the international conflicts that we have had since World War II. There have been 295 violent conflicts around the world since 1945. 147 of them have been solved through outside intervention. Think about what Richard Holbrooke did when he brought peace to Yugoslavia. Think about what President Jimmy Carter did with the Camp David Accords when he brought Egypt and Israel together. Think about, in our own country, what Senator George Mitchell did with the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. How does anyone still think that an international conflict like this, with deep interests on both sides can ever be solved by two states arguing together. This has got to be a multilateral issue, and that is why the United Nations is so important. That's why our campaign has got to start with the truth, exposing the truth. The United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights has repeatedly asked to go into Kashmir to see the truth of the barbarism and injustice that is now unfolding. Injustice which the Indian government is trying to shelter from the views of the world by locking out the international media. Why is the British government, why is Boris Johnson, why is the Tory party not day and night arguing at the United Nations to let in the United Nations observers? What on earth could India be seeking to hide? That is why we need a Labour government next week. One of the first changes that you will see when Labour is elected to government is a very different approach to the position of Kashmir. We've made good progress with the policy that we passed at conference. Good progress, not enough progress in my view, but that struggle goes on. But ultimately, we have to ask ourselves why we have not made more progress. And sometimes this is not a popular point of view. Sometimes I get myself into trouble with my colleagues when I point out that the progress we have made in the last 15 years is not good enough. If you compare the progress in many ways which we have made around the issue of Palestine, we have not made the same progress on Kashmir. Parliament has passed almost unanimously a policy that says that Palestine should be recognised. I was proud to support that motion when it came to the floor of the Commons. Why have we not made the same kind of progress on Kashmir? So I am grateful for your thanks. I say very humbly, I only sought to speak with your voice. And I say more humbly still, I do not believe the progress that we have made is in any way adequate. While there are still the risks, while there is still the death, while there is still the rape, while there is still those millions of children denied future opportunities, we have not made enough progress. So my promise to you is that no matter what it takes, no matter how long it lasts, no matter the personal cost, no matter the difficulties in the argument, I will continue to fight for justice for Kashmir until, inshallah, that day we have one.
Thank you very much. I want